Hello everyone, and welcome back to your confirmation meditation for this week. There is no lesson this week with it being Holy Week, but I felt like there was still a need for us to connect and to talk and kind of reflect a little bit on Holy Week. Plus, we had the last of the by heart verses come out tonight from Pastor Linnea. So I figured I'd go through those, I'll get into my quick meditation, and we'll wrap it up from there. So, starting this whole by heart series off, we started from Pastor Linnea, who gave us, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also," Matthew 6:21, and used the image within the church as the cross behind me. You have then Pastor Corey having the Christ candle being his image, and it's for, "Surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope." Jeremiah 29:11. The next week we had the image of the aisle candles for, "Your word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path," Psalm 119 verse 105. We had the resurrection window, which then Pastor Corey gave us, "Who can separate us from the love of Christ?" Romans chapter 8 verses 35a. We then had Pastor Linnea, the back window, having, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning." Lamentations chapter 3 verses 22 through 23a. Last week we had Pastor Corey giving us the crossbars and the crosses that are holding our church together. And he used the verse from Matthew 6:34. "So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's troubles is enough for today." And finally, we had the baptismal font, which Pastor Linnea just gave us from Isaiah chapter 43 verse 1. "But now thus says the Lord, He who created you, O Jacob, He who formed you, O Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." It's been a great time to be able to go through these and try putting these to memory and to by heart, keeping them. And I know at some point, hopefully we'll have a celebration as we have all these memorized as a group. We can recite them and then have time together in fellowship. But at this point, we're not there yet. And it kind of fits in really well with Holy Week. If you look at the week before Jesus died, we had people entering into Jerusalem, waiting for Jesus, expecting him to come riding in on a horse, being this military champion. Instead, we have palms and jackets being laid on the ground. And then we look to the readings that we'll have this week, starting in John chapter 13, where Jesus is with his disciples and washes their feet, and then has what we use for Holy Communion, typically our time that we have First Communion for our fifth graders. Then we get into Good Friday, where Christ goes and prays and then is turned over to the authorities to be killed. And I'll be coming from John 18 and 19. All of this leads to the resurrection, which we know is coming on Sunday, Resurrection Day, Easter Sunday. But let's think about the first Easter. The disciples were not at the tomb. It's Mary, it's Martha. They're there. But where are they? They're locked in a room, scared. To me, as I've thought about this week and as I've talked with people, this might be the closest and most realistic Easter, potentially, that we've ever had. Many of us will continue to be locked in our rooms, scared to go out. Just like his disciples were scared to have their faces seen by the authorities, because they were afraid that they'd be guilty by association. Guilty and then suffer the same death that Christ went through. Obviously, we know the story, we know the other side of this. And what makes it so hard right now for us dealing with this pandemic is we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know how to get through this. As I've been processing the last month and reflecting and thinking about and trying to get my head around all of this, I remember when I was your age and start reflecting back to the people and the music that I used. And there's one Christian artist that I'll tell you guys to check out along with reading the text this week as you go through Holy Week. But I really liked Chris Rice when I was your guys' age, and most of you probably have never heard of him. There were two songs that I felt as we were getting into this that really made me think about when I was your age. There's one called The 8th Grade, and he goes through and talks about all the craziness that is going on to him in the 8th grade. But I distinctly remember the chorus being, "Why does the past always seem safer? Maybe because at least we know we made it, and why do we worry about the future when the day will come just the way the Lord ordained it, just like back in the 8th grade?" It's one of those that always kind of calmed me as I was worried and stressed about what was coming. That there are always times that I look back and say, I wish I was there, because I know how the story ends. Right now, we're scared because we don't know how the story ends. But we know through the love of Christ that we don't have to be worried. It's partially why we have the eternal flame, reminding us that God is always with us. The second song that I want you to think about this week with this is Love Like Crazy. We just have to love like crazy. Because if the world's ever going to change, we gotta love like crazy. Coming from Chris Rice. Right now, we're in this place that we have to love each other while being apart from each other. And as me being engaged and trying to figure out my wedding, it's been one of the hardest things for me on the face of the planet. When I want to be with my fiance, but I can't. There is the gift that we have of YouTube. We have the gift of communication in other forms other than face-to-face, that we can still express that love. Because that's why this happened, was love. God loved you so much that he took his only son and separated himself from himself so that we can not die the death we deserve. The world is crazy right now, and the world will always have crazy elements to it. We just gotta love and look beyond what's going on today and know that we're going to be okay. So this week, as we're going through this, I'd recommend checking out the services, but if you get the time, read John 13, chapter 13. Read John 17, 18, 19. And then read Matthew 21, the resurrection. Realize that as we're going through this isn't that much different. Disciples were scared, terrified, because they didn't know what was coming. But with having faith, we know where the end is going to end up. We may not know how the end is going to happen. We may not see the end result yet. But have faith that we will get through this. We will be stronger. And that this, potentially, is the most Easter-like, most resurrection-like Easter resurrection day ever. So treasure that. Relish that. We'll be together soon. And at that point, we'll have such a celebration. But until then, stay safe, stay calm, continue the faith.